Welcome back. President Trump issuing dozens of new pardons to several key allies accused of trying to overturn the 2020 election. The pardons include Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, and Sidney Powell. The pardon reads, quote, "This proclamation ends a grave national injustice perpetrated upon the American people following the 2020 presidential election and continues the process of national reconciliation." President Trump confirming he did not include himself in this round of pardons. Joining me now is DOJ pardon attorney and White House weaponization czar, Ed Martin. Ed, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. And I know you've worked on these pardons. Can you tell us about the pardon?
You know, I was watching your program last hour, Maria, and I heard you mention the Russia hoax as an original, kind of when this started, and you mentioned January 6th. What this pardon does is help rescue the people who were hunted. The Biden administration hunted the alternate electors who were participating in our constitutional process in 2020, and they were hunted, and their lives were destroyed. You mentioned the famous people, Rudy and Sidney and others. Most of them are not particularly famous. They're regular people, but they were Trump supporters who believed in the Constitution. So what we worked on here, and the president captured it best, was rectifying a wrong, trying to protect people from, and it was, by the way, it wasn't somebody random. It was deranged Jack Smith who had a plan to target these people, to roll them up, to try to make it about get Trump. So this was a very important set of pardons. I'm really proud to have played a small role in that. And I think across the country, people are realizing if you're hunted by Biden, Obama, folks, there's going to be people on your side, and one of them, the leader of the party and leader of the country, is Donald Trump.
That's so important, Ed. I mean, you're leading this extensive effort to identify this broader swath of people who President Trump said were wronged by either the Biden or the Obama administration. And, what we've learned just from this Arctic frost investigation has been stunning about how wide the net really was for in terms of trying to take down or target anybody who supported President Trump. I mean, I spoke with Ron Johnson on Sunday from Wisconsin, and he said that there were 38 Wisconsinites that were targeted. They're trying to bring criminal charges. These people would never even think about breaking the law. These are, people his mother's age that have been in local politics for years, but they all had one thing in common, and that was that they supported President Trump. There's also, of course, you mentioned, Russia collusion. I mean, I said Russia collusion, the cover-up of Joe Biden, and potentially January 6th, and what was made about it. What else can you tell us about what you've learned by looking under the hood here in terms of how wide this net really was in terms of the Biden weaponization of its agencies and trying to take down their political enemies?
Well, Maria, I think God shined on us when Donald Trump won this election, because we've been able to find out what really happened. You mentioned the Russia hoax. We now know from Tulsi Gabbard's disclosure, she declassified that there was a memo in December of 2016. That's the start of what I would say is the conspiracy to get Trump. And they did it all throughout his term. Then they did it on January 6th and after. I would just point to, again, deranged Jack Smith can show you the path. Deranged Jack Smith had a conspiracy across the country. He targeted all these electors, and Senator Johnson mentioned Wisconsin, but then he utilized a network of local prosecutors, attorneys general. It's all coming out, Maria, and the power of this presidency, and General Bondi is the one that really set me on this course with the weaponization group, is to uncover what's going on and hold them accountable. And I say this over and over again. We're going to prosecute these people every way we can. We're also going to name and shame them. They should be, for history, known as the people that have targeted fellow American citizens in order to get Trump. It's a scandal beyond anything we saw. Arctic frost is only the beginning of the disclosures that are still coming in this important time. And again, the pardons are protection for the people who are trying to do their job under the Constitution, doing normal things. By the way, the Democrats did it in 1960, famously. JFK had alternate electors in Hawaii. They signed up. They served the role. They're dead now. I wanted to posthumously pardon them to point to this fact that how hypocritical this is. But it doesn't matter what the law, it doesn't matter what the truth. It's get Trump and get Trump supporters, and we've got to stand up to that.
And Devin Nunes, of course, as chairman of the Intelligence Committee so many years ago, really zeroed in on this and told our audience exactly what was happening and the truth way before it was well known. And I spoke with Devin on Sunday. Here's what he told me. Watch.
We know it's a conspiracy. The challenge is that the statute of limitations has run on much of this. Now, I don't believe that because it's a conspiracy, we know it's a conspiracy, you have to prove that it's a conspiracy, then it goes back 10 years. So you've seen recently with the indictments of Comey and the prosecution of Comey that's occurring in Virginia, that new documents arose, that now we have clear evidence, not circumstantial, more than circumstantial evidence, direct evidence, that Comey knew that this was a cover-up for the Clinton email scandal. What happened at that time is Comey wanted to keep his job. We now know that through information that's been disclosed. But instead of actually taking that information in 2016 and saying, wait a second, we have the Clinton campaign and the DNC involved in a likely criminal activity hoax to dirty up the other campaign, they actually adopted that campaign and they used the weaponization of the FBI to target Trump.
And Ed, it's now well known that the Russia collusion story really took life in that meeting in 2016 in the Oval Office with President Obama, where John Brennan, then CIA head, wrote down notes. And here's what he wrote. We have the shot of his scribbling, but we actually pulled it out to show the audience exactly what he wrote. And he wrote this in a meeting with Obama. There is an alleged approval by Hillary Clinton on July 26, 2016, of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services. I mean, it was right there in black and white. John Brennan wrote it down in his notes that they are all approving Hillary Clinton's plan to cover up her email scandal and tie Trump to Russia right at the start of the 2016 campaigning season.
Well, you know, first of all, I call Devin Nunes when I want to figure out exactly what's going on. The guy's one of the best I've ever seen and knows stuff. But real quickly, what I would say is this. There's no statute of limitations on the truth. We're going to get the truth out on what went on. That's true. But also, there's no statute of limitations on certain kinds of conspiracies, depending on what the underlying crimes are. And I no less an authority on RICO than Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor. Before that, he was America's prosecutor. I talked to him about that. What you see is a common enterprise. It's called a criminal enterprise, but a common group of people marching through time doing Get Trump from December of 2016 all the way to today, and the same group. So we have to get to it and look at it closely. But again, back to the pardons. What the country and what the media wants us to do is look past the people being victimized. And I just want to say again, Senator Ron Johnson was a huge help on this to give relief and to focus on protecting these people who deserve to pardon, these alternate electors and their affiliates. We're really proud of that, and it's a really big day. It's important. In history, it will go down as Donald Trump standing up for American citizens who were targeted by the Biden administration, by Merrick Garland, and by deranged Jack Smith.
And the pardons are important because it really speaks to free speech, doesn't it, Ed? I mean, those people, you know, saw something that they didn't like, saw something that they didn't trust, and they raised their hand about it, and they spoke out about it. And because they spoke out about it, they were canceled, attacked, you know, denied on so many levels. And then, of course, efforts to prosecute them.
Exactly. Well, and they had to sell their house. They had to mortgage their home. They had to pay for lawyers. The process was the punishment, but it wasn't just because they hated citizens, which I think they do. It was also because they were trying to put them in a position where they would act against the truth and say, oh, I was part of something. I mean, it was a classic prosecutorial kind of targeting and violation, misconduct on what was going on.
But it was also a message to other people. This is what will happen if you raise your voice, if you raise your hand and question the 2020 election.
You're exactly right. It was meant to shut other people up and to make them quiet and make them step off the battlefield to protect our Constitution, to protect our elections, to protect ourselves. And a day like today, Veterans Day, all those guys and gals that fight for us in wars overseas, there's lots of people in this country every day who fight for the good things and Constitution, and they get left really battered by the Biden targeting. History's going to mark this as one of the darkest times because of what Biden and his administration did.
Isn't that extraordinary? Well, thank you very much for this and for joining us this morning. We'll keep watching your work, certainly, as DOJ pardon attorney. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.